to wait a month or a week at least in a magazine to see 5 stills in an article about stuff that probably didn't make the film anyway, the final cut. And you got to see 3 trailers and maybe a TV spot before the film came out, but that's all you had.
Well, Mark, the last thing I'll say is I understand your frustration, but as I've said before, you don't have to watch any of it. No reaction trailers, no breakdowns, nothing. Just it might as well have not even happened. But you just told me about how you were watching all these videos of people like breaking it down.
This was an exception because I was curious. I don't normally watch them. I did for this one because I wanted to see what people were saying because it's the DC, it's the hot topic, and I was curious. That's why I was looking at it. Otherwise, I normally don't watch those videos. I just go into film and go, okay. And so this was the exception, and it hasn't changed since the last time I looked into it back in Batman v Superman. So
what Ian says is exactly where I am. I don't bother with any of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying
you're saying that about every movie almost. You can find the same, brutal takedown of almost every trailer that's coming out.
No, here's Joe. I want to correct the record. I was advising Mark not to do it. I watch it all. The stuff does not affect me. It's a hobby. So, but I'm just saying if it gets under your skin, which Mark said this is an exception, so he's very smart about it normally. But making the exception, I think he reinforces probably why he made the decision not to go spelunking on a regular basis.
But I know people who complain then that the movie gets spoiled for them, and I'm like, well, don't follow these people.
You can't. Yeah. we should get going here because we should.
Oh
wait, we're already live.
My fault. Wow. I got it.
We are live. They caught the tail end of the conversation.
I know they came into the bar late.
Yeah. and the summary of the conversation is Mark is wrong and everybody else here is
correct.
That's not true. There we go. I understand the internet tells me I'm wrong all the time, but where I'm not wrong is I've got a collection of wonderful folks here who make this show so much better. Welcome everyone to the spoiler room. It is our last, and this conversation kind of leads into me yelling at clouds. This is our last Over the Hill special. Yes, we've been looking at films all year of movies that have turned 50, like myself did this past year. And we've got a real doozy of a one tonight. A real interesting one for sure. A classic that, has a lot of familiar faces, including one in particular named Al Pacino. It's from 1975, and it's Dog Day Afternoon. And yes, so thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair and popping. Got it. Favorite drink with us as we talk movie spoilers. And tonight I got, again, as I mentioned before, the crew that makes this show happen. It is none other than we've got the legendary Joe Randazzo with us. How you doing, Joe?
I don't know if I agree with legendary, but hello, everyone.
And we have the man who brings a level of class to the show as well. It's Mr. Jeff York of the Establishment Shop. Hello.
Thank you very much. I hope I live up to that.
Yes. And then, of course, my right-hand man, he keeps coming back for more. And always a pleasure to have Mr. Ian Simmons here with us. How you doing, Ian?
I'm kind of bummed because congratulations on another great year, but we don't get to spin the wheel of random.
Yeah, we do.
For the next year. Okay.
We are absolutely spinning the wheel of random.
I'm triple excited. Yeah.
Yes, that will be at the end, folks, as we kick off our new year and a milestone, I guess. I don't know whatever it amounts to or what value at all it means, but we're kicking off a milestone as well, which we'll talk about later. But tonight, we're going to talk about Dog Day Afternoon. And Mr. Jeff York, you are the man on these. And it's been a while since you've been here. So please, would you kindly give us the synopsis of Dog Day Afternoon, my friend?
I will. As you said, it's a 1975 movie directed by Sidney Lumet, probably at the height of his powers and telling tales in Hollywood. And it was a big success critically and with audiences as well, based on a very true story. In fact, it's one of the few openings that tells you this is a true story, not based on a true story. It says this is pretty much what happened. But on the very steamy day in the summer of August 22nd, 1972. A couple of first-time crooks decide to rob a bank in Brooklyn. Sonny Wartzik and his friend Sal Tunaril and another guy named Stevie go to the First Brooklyn Savings Bank wanting to rob it. We don't know exactly why yet, but the plan goes awry almost from the start. Sal can barely get the rifle out of his, which is one of the funniest things, where he's trying to get the fake box of flowers open to let him pull out the authoritative rifle that he needs. And Stevie leaves right away. He has no stomach for it. So they already have to deal with him sort of dealing with half, 1/3 less of his people. And from there, all kinds of ridiculousness ensues. But here's the fascinating thing about this movie. 15 minutes into the film, they set up all the cops coming. Like, it's just overcompensated with 250 cops. This hostage situation where Sonny and Sal are sort of forced to hold the bank employees hostage because they aren't going to get the money that they want. They've already taken the big deposit earlier that day. So there's only $1,100 in the basic vault, and they take what's out of the drawers. And suddenly they're faced with not only their plans going awry, they're losing a crew member, they've got all these cops outside, but then the press shows up and there's no sense of organization and barricade. And it becomes this sort of Dog Day Afternoon, almost a comedy of manners. But slowly but surely, and I think what gives the movie its power, and I have not seen it in quite some time, maybe 20 plus years, is, and I forgot this as I was watching it, is it starts out very funny.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end, it becomes very, very tragic and very sad. And I think it proceeds really from the second hour on, where it's just like, oh my God, you start to feel almost like you're in that hostage situation with them, and you're empathizing with all the people who are innocent victims, but they're trying to stay alive and they're trying to help Sonny where they can. I tell you, I think it's easily Al Pacino's most empathetic performance, in the least that I can think of off the top of my head, where, his eyes and the sadness in his face and his terror and his frustration and all that, it pulls at your heart, even though he's a criminal. But he just can't make it work out right. But it's basically the course of what happens during this terribly mishandled and bungled attempt at robbing a bank. It's supposed to be so super fast in and out, and it turns into comic tragedy. And I think that's what gives it its power. And right up until the end, it stays true to the facts, and it's very affecting. It's well directed, it's tense, it's funny, it's all these New York details. This is one of the things I love about the 70s movies, is they did so many movies on location in New York, filled with New York actors, and they're all talking like this and braying and barking, and it's hilarious, and yet it's authentic, and it's an incredible film, and you don't know from minute to minute what's going to happen. And I swear to God, that is probably the key thing that keeps us sort of close with Sonny and Sal, is that they don't know what's going to happen either. By the way, there's some great supporting people in it. John Cazale plays Sal in it, in a very different performance from Fredo, which you forget he made that movie twice, the two movies with Pacino. Very different dynamic in both of the Godfather films just a couple of years earlier. Charles Durning is the main cop. Moretti, who's trying to, I think it's Moretti, who's trying to sort of keep casualties from happening. There's also a lot of other really terrific actors in there. James Broderick and Chris Sarandon, who is a surprise character that's introduced at the hour mark, received a Best Supporting Actor nomination, as well as received many Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, Director, Actor, and one for Screenplay, which was really an incredible screenplay written by, the story was by Thomas More, but the screenplay is by a gentleman named Frank Pearson, and he won for adapted screenplay that year, I think.
And if you watch the movie, you can see why this film is considered a classic. It's
so well written.
It's interesting. Wheel of Random. We're ending on this one because this is one of those very talked about films, but also a very, very interesting one. Do you remember when you first saw it, Jeff?
Well, this is one thing I always try to tell these guys, that I'm lucky to have or fortunate, maybe like for me, that still it's appreciated, but sort of gives a different point of view than these other learned gentlemen. Is I was there when that movie opened, because I'm old enough to say I was in junior high when that movie opened, and my parents knew that I could handle mature films, so I got to go and see some of these R-rated things that usually you wouldn't see until you're well into high school. But I saw this in the theater, and it was kind of the same reaction I'd forgotten that I had here. It's like people were laughing, and then by the end they're crying and tearing up some, and it's really ridiculous, but also very moving and seems real, as crazy as it gets. And it was really quite a stunning film, and that was a great year for films. It was the year of Jaws, and it was the year of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and Nashville, I think, was up as well that year, and all kinds of incredible films that were, it was, that kind of day when they were making just terrific, smart movies that were hard to predict, unexpected, and they resonated with the critical audiences as well as audiences and worldwide. This was a big winner at the BAFTAs that year. So it was kind of an event and kind of a stunning event, but it also had that, and I dare say, and this is the last thing I'll just say and let this floor open to others, is there's a New York grittiness, like I kind of did earlier when I aped the voices, but it just feels sometimes so authentic and not that filmed. It feels almost like a documentary sometimes. Now, granted, there's some great, long hands up and down the bank and some special cuts to people. And there's the one scene where all the police and the press are just kind of all overreacting to this gunshot. And it's the one time in the movie where Sidney Lumet does like quick cuts, I think one every second or so, like bam, bam, blah, blah, so that kind of stuff. But it's funny and intense as well. But there's something about the sense that New York was such a character in all these movies, starting in the late 60s, really till the early 80s, I think. Yeah. And you get it from a comedy like the Neil Simon comedies that were shot there, from Goodbye Girl to the Sunshine Boys to The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 and Dog Day Afternoon, criminal thrillers like this, to, The Godfathers and some of the other things, Shaft. I mean, all these films that were, and New York becomes that character as much as, Sonny and Sal are in here. And it's just, it's kind of, they don't make them like they used to anymore. And that's kind of one of the ways they don't.
Yeah, totally agree. Joe, you remember when you saw Dog Day Afternoon?
Sometime in the mid 90s. I was getting into watching a lot of the crime movies from the 70s because somebody in my family had shown me The Godfather, and I was a kid who was really only watching horror movies. I was like, holy, this is blowing me away. So I started seeking out a lot of the Dog Day Afternoons and the 83 Scarface and a lot of the 70s and early 80s crime films. And I grew up in Brooklyn. I was 3 miles from where this took place. I didn't realize you get used to based on a true story. So you don't realize all the time that this it's not just this one thing happened and we decided to write a movie around it. But it's interesting looking now because I'm looking back at, my childhood, like I said, is a couple miles from here. That looks like my old neighborhood. I was like, oh my God, it made me so nostalgic for a time period that I was born into 10 years later. No, when did this movie come out? 75, 6 years later. Mm-hmm. But yeah, one thing that I took away last night that I didn't put together back then was you don't give John Cazale rosaries because it never works out for him when you hand him a rosary.
Can you believe it's the same character, the same actor who played Fredo? And I mean, it took me halfway through watching it myself yesterday to go like, oh, shit, that's right. This is the guy who played Fredo opposite Al Pacino, and they've almost kind of inverted the kind of, stealiness in this film. And it's like a short year after Godfather 2, and John Cazale is just like one of the most, well, and he, of course he starred in 4 Best Picture films, and I think he only made 6.
5.
What 5?
He only made 5.
Yeah, he did Godfather, Godfather 2, Dog Day, and Deer Hunter. What was
the Conversation?
Oh, that's right. He was in The Conversation too. My God.
So yeah, he is the only actor in history that literally batted 1,000.
Yes. And he dated Meryl Streep. He was dating Meryl Streep at the time.
Well, then he bat 3,000. So no, anyway.
Well, Meryl's the one that got him on the Deer Hunter.
That's right. That's right. He was a great actor, and he's great in this. And it's funny. I just want to say one quick thing to do that, if you don't mind. I love it when they first, he doesn't say much originally, and then the first time, he kind of really says something is when he asks Sonny if he meant that about, like, we're going to start throwing hostage out, if you don't deliver our stuff. And he goes, did you mean that? And you wonder, like, he's kind of shaking, like you think, oh, he's not up to it. He's like, no, he's up to it. So now he's the guy you have to be kind of afraid of.
Yeah, because I'll do it. I'll do it
all the time. It is like he's ready to do it. It's like, oh wow, 1,000 miles. Speaking about batting 1,000 miles from Fredo.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ian, what about you, sir?
Well, I mean, first time I saw this movie was today. I finished it right before we got on.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, it's great. I do. Well, my knowledge of this movie comes from watching it and then from doing a little bit of online digging after seeing it, mostly through Wikipedia. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, it is based on a true story, but there are some embellishments, which, in terms of like some of the conversations that they had, at one point, Sonny talks to his mother, and another point he talks to his wife, and apparently then none of that ever happened. The motive for the robbery is very much in contest. We'll talk about the who and what Sonny was as we get into it, but there is some dramatic license taken for it, which I think is a testament to why it still really works as a movie, because it does feel so true to life. And Jeff, that's something that I picked up on watching it, was if this movie were to be made today, everybody down to the extras would look like Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many pockmarks and bad beards and terrible teeth in this movie. It's so great to see. But speaking of Chalamet's 29. Pacino is 35 when they made this movie, but Chalamet looks like he's just coming off the Disney Channel, and he's allegedly a grown man. So yeah, there's just something, like you said, they don't make them like they used to. That's in the case of like leading Hollywood men too. It's great, and I think the last 5 minutes of this movie were kind of real nail biters for me. It helps that everybody's like sweaty and just drenched, and then the escape plane comes. You're like, are they
sardines in that?
Oh yeah, and cramped in the car. And like, are they really gonna get? Is this how it's really gonna end? And nope. I love that it's, I think, the only bank heist movie I've seen where nobody gets killed in the bank or even really roughed up. There's precisely one death in this movie, and it comes in the last like 3 minutes. It's quite a work, and it makes me want to. I'm not up on my Lumet, but I want to check out more of his work.
I'll just tell you one quick thing that's shocking, and you may be knowledgeable about this, but the movie he made right before this, he's mostly known as sort of an actor's director and sort of these gritty kind of realistic things. Generally, sometimes slight stylization, like he did with, for example, Failsafe or 12 Angry Men, which are, very contained and sort of point of view camera work, and it's a little stagey. But the movie he made right before this was his most stylistic flourish away from that, and that was Murder on the Orient Express in 1974. And it's hard to believe the same director did that, but I think he got that job because of the claustrophobia of the jury room for 12 Angry Men and his ability with actors. And then I think in some respects that might be why he got this one too, because there's a certain amount of containedness to this, where he's very good at doing that and making that come alive even in those enclosed spaces, like they did with the Orient Express train. But it's funny because what a follow-up to a movie that's very stylized, very kind of beautiful in its way, and even sort of mannered to the right way, in the way that Agatha Christie's writing is. But then here he goes with something that has that French Connection sort of 1970s gritty kind of feel that they did in a lot of movies, where it's all sort of it plays very realistically.
Well, I mean, I might be more up on my Lumet than I thought, because we talked about Orient Express I think last year, Mark, and then
we did.
I have seen Failsafe once when I was very young, and I don't think I realized that was Sidney Lumet. So I gotta go look. I'll start by looking at his filmography and then figuring out, okay, what gaps do I have to fill?
Well, his last big film was a really good one, a good sort of ender for his career, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, with Philip Seymour Hoffman, Albert Finney, Ethan Hawke, and Marissa Tomei. Very well done film. And
And
Pretty
his movie
dumb.
immediately following this was Serpico, another gritty New York cop drama. So
Oh, I didn't pull out. I should have pulled out my, instead of having my Superman up there, should have pulled out my Serpico soundtrack that I have on vinyl. But no, that's the one thing that I think is one of these films that you watch and you like, because we're so used to things being well executed and choreographed and everything when there's bank heist movies or whatnot and how they go. And even if things go wrong, it's like in this one, our guys show up and you're right. You know, I loved it because they're immediately bumbling.
yeah,
It's like it's like this isn't like Ocean's 11. This isn't like some ex-military crew that's coming in here. Yeah, he's an ex-soldier, but these guys don't do this all the, you know, this is, he's clumsily with the gun getting it out of the box, and then he's trying to spray paint the security cameras, but it's Al Pacino and he's like 5'5" or whatever, and he's trying to spray paint the camera, you know, and it's supposed to be this intense situation, and yet you have this humor in there which made you realize that these are just guys that are doing this for whatever reason. And we learn later the reason, at least for you know, Sonny's motivation. But it's like for a while you're just like, wow, what, you know, it's like what you guys are thinking of. You know, he's like, he gets there and he's like, oh, the deposit wasn't there. I'm like, how would you miss that? You know?
well, he mentions it. The guy who gave him the information told him that the money was delivered to the bank on that day, not that they came and got it. So he got his wires crossed. But I was about to compare it also to Ocean's 11, because again, like that's where you got the well coordinated heist, and like Sylvia says, what was your plan here?
Well, I love the fact too that you know, usually when it's so like regimented and precise, and you know, Hans Gruber taking over the building in Die Hard and everything, that, you know, it takes an awful lot to sort of throw off the plan. And even if there is a plan that gets thrown off, somehow there's backup things for this stuff. Is all just like, you know, like the one woman wants to go to the bathroom. I'm not going to make it through having to be locked in here. And like, well, we'll start by having you go to the bathroom. And then finally, he's so frustrated, he's like bringing in the garbage pail. Like, here's the bathroom. And, you know, it's just, they haven't thought of anything that's going on. But you know, it's funny too, because as the movie goes on too, you get to know a lot of those characters, maybe not as well as developed in some, but it reminded me a lot of Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, where you think it's a star vehicle and there's a couple main characters, but really so many of those people in the bank. I mean, yeah, Carol Kane's one of the bank attendants, but all the bank attendants come off pretty well, and they, you know, you get to know them a little bit, and they have lines and they are part of conversations, and they're sitting around having pizza and tabs and stuff. It's like, it becomes this invested comedy where comedy drama where you're invested in those people. I forgot how invested I was with Charles Durning's main policeman.
Yeah.
Like, he's frustrated as Sonny is. Like, he can't get the crowds and the police. He's constantly telling them to drop your guns, and he's trying to save lives here, and he's frustrated, and you know, he's having bad luck on his side too, managing just as much. It's quite mirrored for a good part of the film, which is interesting. And you never dislike him. He's a very, I think, sympathetic character. He's not the easy bad guy that so many movies would make him out to be, like just, you know, like Die Hard did, like the guys other than Reginald VelJohnson's character, you know, the FBI guys and the Paul Gleason character, and a lot of those other people are just terrible.
Well, I think, I mean, that's one of the my points of praise for this movie is the realism, but it's also a source of frustration because Charles Durning disappears halfway through this movie.
Yeah.
And he's replaced by James Broderick, because you've got, you know, Durning is the local cop, and then Broderick is the FBI guy who you see him, you know, very early on, but he's more of a background figure,
Right.
much like the cop played by Lance Henriksen, who I was convinced was going to get through the entire film without saying a damn thing. But then in that last kind of car ride, 15 minutes, he becomes a chatty Cathy. But it's, yeah, Durning was fantastic. I've never quite seen him. I don't think I've seen him this young in anything. And his rapport with Pacino is just, it's magical because they're just two like really frustrated guys trying to make sense of this weird day that they're having. I really appreciate that dynamic. Broderick comes in and he's great too, but he turns it into more of the traditional, okay, I'm now the Fed negotiator and trying to get this thing figured out. I almost wish that Durning had been the person from the beginning to the end, although that dynamic might have changed the outcome of things quite a bit.
I think to your point,
there's definitely a sense that there was a conversation like, okay, you bungled this enough, I'm taking over, and I'm going to get this done. That's the sense that I got from this. By the way, you know who else was really frustrated? Carol Kane's off-screen husband was really, really annoyed. What do you mean the bank's being robbed? When is he going to be done with it? Like,
he's up the leftovers. He's sitting there. I know you're being held hostage, Johnny, but what do I do for dinner? By the way, Ian, I thought about that too. In fact, I had the same criticism of the movie as I was watching it yesterday. And then I wondered if they maybe had that scene and cut it, or I'll tell you what I think in effect does is it actually makes you feel the shift a little bit more where this is maybe going to go bad for Sonny. Not that it wasn't kind of going bad from the beginning, but having that sort of empathetical voice of reason, and now James Roderick, who plays it sort of implacably and kind of cool and stuff, it I think makes that turn into where it starts to move more from comedy to tragedy.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, and also he immediately comes in and he makes the emotion of don't worry, we're going to take care of Sal. And you have Sonny going, what are you talking about? What do you mean taking care of Sal? Like the thought process seems to be because the way Sonny's been describing Sal, the police think he is like this hard ass madman that just wants to open fire on everybody. I think he was willing to do it if Sonny wanted him to, but I don't feel like he's just like this bloodthirsty mad dog.
Right.
But I think because of the way Sonny talks him up, the police believe it. And I think that's why we get that tragic final scene where, you have Lance Henriksen telling him, "Hey, Sal, don't forget, keep the gun pointed up." And then you have James Broderick holding Pacino's gun while he just takes him out.
That's good advice anyway, to keep the gun up, because I was still worried about the hostages towards the end. I remember thinking that in the theater, like if one of those hostages gets accidentally shot, when they said, "Hey, keep the gun up because you have bumps along the road," it's like, that's a good piece of advice, But it also worked out.
Just ask Melvin. No, just kidding. Marvin. just ask Marvin. Oh man, I shot Marvin in the face.
Marvin in the face.
Sorry. But no, I mean that's one of the things that I really enjoyed in this, and also too, with the Sal character, he is. When James Broderick shows up, his FBI Sheldon shows up about almost exactly the halfway through mark or whatnot. When he shows up, it's like Sal is the bad guy equivalent of Sheldon. These are the two guys that are taking it far more serious than Duran's character in Pacino. I think, in a way. I mean, the way they're approaching it, Moretti is trying to be accommodating, but also try to keep things down. Sonny doesn't really want this to blow up. He just was hoping to cash and grab. So these are two of more, I won't say not, unprofessional, but they're more like real guys. Like they're just trying to take care of this really crappy situation. And then you have Sal, who's taking it far more serious, and Sheldon, who takes it far more serious. So you have those two as well. And, and that's how it came off to be is that because you watch Sonny as well, his demeanor and how he approaches things. When Sheldon shows up, he's just like, "Oh, you okay?" During the sergeant, the lieutenant Moretti, he's just like, "Okay, you want pizza? We'll get you pizza." Literally, the boyfriend of, I think it was one of the girls. He tackled Maria. He tackles Sonny, and Moretti actually has him pulled off of Sonny, and it goes what you were saying. I think it is Sal's built up so much to being this badass, that they're like, yeah, don't mess with Sonny, because if Sonny doesn't make it back into the bank, he's gonna we're gonna have 10 hostages.
I mean, you even have was it Sylvia, I think, runs out and goes, he needs to see Sonny. He wants to see Sonny. He's gonna kill us all. He needs to see Sonny.
Yeah, that's right. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say.
I also love the slow turn too that takes up the first hour, where Sonny starts to realize that Moretti is kind of on his side. Like he wants this to go like without more problems. Avoid death and hurt and all that. And we can get you this now. Who knows if that's going to go down there? But at least it gets him out of the bank, gets the hostages returned, and that's Moretti's key thing. And he's meeting him man to man, sort of as a Brooklynite, if you will, right? Just kind of two guys sort of meeting commonality on it. But I also love the fact that during the first hour, Sonny realizes that, he's got a little bit of the audience on his side outside when he's playing to them. I mean, there's the famous line about Attica, and they give you that little piece early on, like, what happened at Attica? They ended up killing all these innocent people too. And then, the people are, when he's paying for the pizzas, and they're applauding him for that and thinking, no, he's almost like a little bit of a, sort of an anti-hero or sort of a, whatever you want to call, like the gangsters were in the 1920s. Oh, they're robbing the banks. They may be bad guys, but they're robbing the banks. And some of that kind of stuff is funny to watch, where Sonny realizes he's got a little bit more sway than he maybe thought he did when it was starting.
And that leads to more swagger on his end every time he's in front of them.
Yes.
He's kind of walking like, I'm a badass.
When he's on TV, he can see himself on TV when he's talking to the reporter. I mean, it's very funny, some of that.
And then you have the girl Miriam. She notices he's on TV. She's like,
yeah.
Well, then
and even the pizza guy's like, I'm a star, baby.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ian. What are you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say, Joe, you have a very good point there, and it I think ties back into the relationship with Moretti. Like the first few hours, this is going really well, and Sonny starts to get a sense of his own power, and that hubris carries over into his relationship with Sheldon, but he doesn't quite have as much pull as he thinks he does, down to he kind of takes his eye off the ball. And so he's that last scene where he's being arrested and he's like kind of looking around and seeing all the hostages going off. He's completely bewildered because in his mind, this is the point where I'm supposed to be on the plane, like heading to Algeria. What is going on here? What happened? I'm so confused. When he's in the limo bus with everybody, he's asking Sheldon, I haven't eaten all day. Is there food on the plane? And Sheldon's like, sure, they got hamburgers on there. Like, what are you talking about?
But to your point, Ian, he hasn't thought it through even towards the end. He hasn't envisioned that maybe this doesn't come off.
Well, he thinks he's winning.
Yeah.
Like he's telling Sal the whole time, like, no, we got this.
We made it. We did it.
Yeah, we made it. We did this. What country do you want to go to? Wyoming.
Right.
the exotic country of Wyoming.
Well, I love the fact too that the script is funny like that, but they never underline it. In fact, if I remember correctly, Lumet cuts off of that line pretty fast. Like a lot of directors would milk the comedy by showing, Sonny or somebody going, doing like a take at it. And Lumet keeps it moving. The whole movie has this energy and pop to it.
See, that's the thing is I didn't think the Wyoming line, I think it's funny in retrospect, but in the context of the movie, I thought it was pretty scary because you've got a guy that's got this machine gun and he's being pumped up by other people as, kind of dangerous, but he also might be really stupid and susceptible to being insulted or suggestion or whatever. So when he said that, I'm like,
he doesn't know.
Goodness, this is going to end up being a Michael Madsen Reservoir Dogs situation.
Well, what's really interesting too is the way they set it up. And I know, and we were talking about me yelling at clouds about, the way trailers and everybody analyzes everything even before a movie comes out, but also just the way films are made, the setting that they have in the time period and way everything, the background, the world that this is taking place in. You do have the mention of Attica, which had the cops handling a wrong situation where innocents got killed with the actual, criminals. So there's that. There's the idea of the banks still in the 70s not having the best reputation. So, where he was winning kind of the social battle for a little bit, it also sets up, though, how once the initial fear subsides for our hostages and they realize kind of what the dynamic actually is in there, you having them calm down a bit at one point eventually, to where they're not exactly on Sonny's side, but at the same time they're like, like he was talking to Mulvaney, and Mulvaney's helping him move the table in front of the door in the back of the bank, and he's talking to him. He's like, "Oh, you got insurance?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I don't." He doesn't care about the money. The manager cares about the people, but they drop just enough lines like that, or the people's opinions towards the cops at this point because of other events that happen. It kind of, if you think, you have to think, they don't hold your hand, but you think, you go, well, why are these people acting like, you're like, oh, this is kind of like, they don't like these guys. They don't think they're going to actually, they don't think Sonny's going to kill him. Sal might, but but at the same time, they're like, I wouldn't do this, but at the same time, they're like, okay, we could talk to this guy. He let Jenny talk to her husband on the phone.
For a good long time.
For a good long time. He could have easily just cut, the cable or whatnot, So it's just interesting, the social aspect and some of the statements they make, I think, or at least the setup that they do to help kind of explain but not hold your hand in how some of the characters are actually acting towards the whole situation.
Well, I mean, that might be a little bit of making oceans out of puddles. I don't get the feeling that most of the women in that bank are thinking particularly deeply about, the socioeconomic plight of the working man.
No,
they just feel like they're going to their bank jobs, and all of a sudden this crazy hostage situation is coming to them. I think the why this odd dynamic works in a way that it did not work in John Q. Whereas we talked about last week, there was the cartoonishly racist, guy in the hospital who was getting punched out and dragged along the floor by Denzel Washington. And then like 20 minutes of screen time later, they're sitting around joking around as if they've been friends for 20 years. We get to spend a good deal of time with these characters in different situations. And it's not like there's one flip where they're hostages and then they're hanging out. That happens several times in the movie because there's the scene where the lights go out. There's the scene with the gunshot in the back of the bank. For every time that these characters get comfortable with each other, something jars them back into reality, and they have to be corralled. Like, okay, we got to stop talking, and everybody into the vault, or everybody into the lobby, or this is happening. On top of that, the bank tellers figure out pretty quickly who they're dealing with. They're dangerous because they have guns, but they are not professionals. They're not evil killers.
Right.
They are unstable. And so there's a lot of henpecking that goes around, a lot of bullying on the parts of these bank tellers and bank managers towards the people who are holding them hostage. And that dynamic kind of flips back and forth. So again, it's not something that you can really write convincingly as kind of like these adversarial plot points, but it does feel very real, like these different kind of personalities getting in this weird situation. The tempers are going to flare, the humor is going to come out, but at any moment, as evidenced by that scene in the limo bus when they're driving to the airport, they're like, we're all going to go to this on this trip together, but they're all really freaked out because it's getting real for them for probably the 8th and possibly final time in the day.
But what I also was talking about, the social aspect, is the fact that they're afraid the cops are going to shoot them. This is one of
they
those,
almost shoot the Blackguard when he first goes out.
Yeah,
they think he's one of the bank robbers, and they don't realize that he's got asthma and he's sick and he's practically crawling out of there, and they handcuff him because they don't have it controlled on their outside situation either. This movie is born of chaos, but I love the fact too that the screenplay keeps injecting humanity in that case. I think it's interesting, your point, Ian, that every time, yeah, they seem like they're people, they're reminded of this is still this situation. And yet most of the movie is recognizing the human beings in there. Like, for example, when, early on when they're first rounding them up and Sonny is afraid to do anything too demonstrative, and he says, "I'm a Catholic and I don't want to hurt anybody." And then there's also when he and the bank manager Mulvaney are moving the things to sort of keep them from being able to come in the outdoor. It's difficult for them, Pacino's small and the other guy's old and a little portly, and they're trying to figure out what's heavy enough to hold it. And I mean, so many film directors and screenplays just, okay, this isn't interesting, let's cut that, and we'll just cut back to them. And they've got the big desk in front of the door. No, this movie and the screenplay, and it shows these characters, and it's an opportunity to create character. Not only in the way they're filling the time, bantering back and forth with each other, finding out about the insurance and all that, but also, oh, okay, this is a task, and it's a little bit difficult for both of them. And I love the fact that that's a real part of this ordeal. Even with, Carol Kane, when she's on the phone, says he wants to know what time you'll be through. Like, that's absorbed man's man coming home wanting the food on the table at 6 and all this. It's like, I know you could be killed, honey, but I'm thinking my stomach first and foremost. Those little bits of humanity keep taking us into them, making us like them, but also reminding us that they're sort of distracting from the fact that this is a very real problem going on around them, and let's not forget that.
I mean, the film even ends with what Ian said, because you got everybody in the back of the limo bus. They just decided Maria's going to be the one to go, and she looks at Sal and goes, "Oh, Sal, don't worry about your first time on the plane. It's going to be okay. Here's my rosary."
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's also. I think it was Mark that brought it up, or it may have been you, Jeff, that even at the end, as he's being arrested, he is kind of bewildered. And I think it didn't dawn on him that we're not friends. These people aren't my friends.
Right.
Like, they might be upset that Sal got killed, but at the end of the day, these were people that I was holding at gunpoint.
Yeah.
Well, that's that. There's that shot of, we see specifically the bank manager and then a couple of people, but the bank manager is like the biggest guy, so it's most noticeable. When they're being led away by the cops, their back is to Sonny. There's no tearful, like, turning around like, "Oh, I'm gonna miss you, Sonny," or whatever. They're like, "No, fuck this guy. I want to get home to my family. I'm gonna need therapy for the next decade."
Yeah, this isn't my buddy. This is a guy who literally held a gun to me for the last 12 hours.
Yeah. And yeah, you could tell Sonny just is surprised. But one of the other things that I liked in here, and I'm not sure if it was deliberate or not, but I think it plays a part in it. Here you show the creativity in editing, because we have two cops show up to Sonny's wife's apartment where she has two kids, and they're talking, and she's not talking, the greatest about Sonny. She says he kind of has a temper and all of this, but he left. But, she's speaking very frank about her husband. Not a few minutes, not too long later, they talk about, "Oh, we've got your wife down here now to talk." And you're like, okay. And then Chris Sarandon shows up. And you're like, wait, what?
In a hospital gown.
In a hospital gown. And you're like, wait, what? And they go, "Your wife is here." And so you're sitting there going, wait, what? But it's the way they edited it. You're expecting this character. They say the wife's coming down, and now we have Leon. And you suddenly, the film, like at the halfway point, it takes this turn now, and suddenly Sonny's got like 4 layers that's just suddenly expanded underneath him a bit, or a few layers, and you're like, okay.
And that reveal also kind of turns the bystanders on him.
Yeah.
Because suddenly you get the one cop who chuckles and says, "Oh my God, he's a queer," and then after that, it seems like the audience the bystanders there have kind of turned on Sonny. Like all of a sudden, it's, oh wait, he's gay. Fuck this guy.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange, but that would make sense in the 70s, because in the 70s, yeah, hell, even in the 90s,
the crowd changed. It changed dynamics. It changed demographic. Basically, it was like,
well, yeah. Then you have the gay community coming out, but in the little time in between, you have the people who were cheering for him 5 minutes ago. Suddenly, we're a little bit more antagonistic towards Sonny, because now he's not one of us; he's one of them. It's kind of an interesting dynamic.
And this is the part of the movie that I really didn't like. And it's because you're right, Mark, it is a bit jarring, but I don't consider that to be a plus.
Yeah.
The real story, and this is one of the criticisms that the character that Sonny was based on had about the movie, is that in real life, he was separated from his wife for several years before he even met the person who Leon was based off of. The movie makes it seem like somehow this guy was married with a wife and kids, and he had a great relationship with them until suddenly he began to change and get all angry.
Mm-hmm.
And oh yeah, then he married this trans person. Now, they mentioned that the person who performed the ceremony had been defrocked, but my question is, like, where and how is this ceremony took place? How is it recognized? What did the wife think about it? It raises too many questions, where if they just introduced the realistic elements to the story, it would have made a lot more sense. And I understand why the crowd would have turned on Sonny at that moment, not just for being gay or, you know, being into trans people or whatever, but the whole fuzziness of him having a wife and kids and cheating on them with this trans person. It was infidelity, and then the queer factor compounded on top of each other, on top of the bank robbery, that was very easy to say, yeah, maybe fuck this guy.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that I think, and I'm trying to remember what I thought of when I saw it those many decades ago, was I think it was part of it becoming very serious. And like, this is a flawed person. He's not this sort of folk hero that we've been sort of cheering him on and laughing with, and sort of seeing him sort of seem to get his way on certain things, or at least even earn the respect of the people he's holding hostage. I seem to recall that might have been my takeaway for it, but I agree with you, Ian. I think it's a little too much that they didn't need to go. Have his wife and kids be somebody he divorced, and now he's with this other person, which changes the flavor of some of it. And again, at that hour, it's a very key hour where it kind of shifts into a much heavier, sort of more tragic thing. And I think the thing I liked about the way they did treat the Leon character is that he is a very tragic character in it. It's not played really for laughs. There's a couple of scenes where you get some name calling and stuff, but it's very sad the more he talks to him. And those scenes between him and Pacino on the phone, even though he's right next door, are so close and yet so far as where they are even right now in what they're doing and stuff. But I think you're right. I think it could have just been simplified, and I think we would have still gotten all the impact of this unusual turn in his personal life, as well as, you know, the sympathies maybe being lost on some of the Brooklynites who sort of could relate to him as a sort of common, almost folk hero in other respects. But it gets a little complicated there. I think it's salvaged because I think Sarandon's very good in what could have just been a sort of tremendously mannered or cliched performance. I felt so much for Leon during it, and sorry for him, as well as all the more for Sonny on a lot of levels, just because it now has become this misguided, every piece of it kind of misguided plan. But yeah, it gets a little excessive in the narrative. I agree with you. And then they maybe rob us of seeing, you know, what happens to Moretti. I mean, he's taken off. The last scene, I think the last shot of him, he's eating, like he can finally relax and eat. And, you know, he's kind of just a bystander now. But, you know, you needed to have that moment where, you know, the Sheldon says, all right, we did it your way. Now we're doing it mine. I know that's a little cliche. They would have found a better, defter way to say it. Yeah. But there needed to be that shift, like, okay, you've managed to keep these people alive and keep it going and calm to some degree, but now we've got to close this shit up.
Yeah, and I think I want to be clear. My criticism is only in the way that relationship is portrayed in the film. I think Chris Sarandon did a great job, and it's revelatory for people who are catching up on this movie 50 years later, who only know Chris Sarandon as Jerry Dandridge from Fright Night, or as from The Princess Bride. I mean,
It's hard to believe.
it's a very similar role to Jared Leto's, Oscar-winning performance from Dallas Buyers Club. And what's so surprising is that this movie is 50 years old. It's a portrayal of a character and I dare I say a progressive attitude towards this, marginalized lifestyle that you'd think, wait, they were talking about this in this way a half century ago. What's been going on the last 10 years, gang?
Yeah, really.
So it's kudos. And I think, Sarandon was the kind of the hidden gem of this movie.
Oh, I mean, that's, you've got two very talented actors in it, and you get that conversation between them on the phone. And I don't know if Sarandon was actually on the phone with Pacino when they were doing the lines or whatnot, but just the way they both act that scene, it's like, oh man, I'm watching it. Yeah, and Chris Sarandon's portrayal easily in 75 could have been played up far more stereotypical, far more flamboyant in a way, like we've seen in like some of the other films, comedies and that. I mean, Car Wash, if you look at Car Wash or whatnot, or just how folks who that's their lifestyle, how they were portrayed, especially in 70s, especially in the 80s. It was punchline left and right. So here to see when Leon shows up, you're not quite sure, and it's not really until they even reveal that Leon is trans, when they were talking about they were talking about their doctor, their experience and whatnot. You're like, oh, and then suddenly you kind of see it, but you don't really see it beforehand, and then it drops a little bit and you see a little bit more of like, okay, but I just loved his portrayal of Leon. I think that and Pacino, the way they handled that whole thing, and especially the conversation and whatnot. But I'm glad you brought it up, because this is where I could be making the lake out of a puddle, as Ian said I was doing before, which rightly so. I probably am. I do it all the time. But in there, they do talk about how Sonny does have a bit of an anger management issue. And they don't bring it up because PTSD is still a thing, but how he got, would suddenly have a anger issue, and he put a gun to Leon's head at one point, from what we were told, from what is told to us. He had a gun pointed to his head, and the way they describe it, it's actually pretty. You're like, whoa. And then later on, at the very end of the movie, we have Lance Hendrickson pressing the gun against his head, similar to the way he pressed the gun, the way it's described, towards Leon's head. And again, it may just been coincidence the way they handle it, but I thought it was very interesting, because the look on Pacino's face, I'm like, it almost felt like a little bit of a callback, like he's recalling, like, oh, this is how Leon felt.
No, I think you're actually right about that. I mean, maybe they are little puddles presented wise, but I think they lead to some of those callbacks and some of those sort of figuring,
Right.
Like, I think it's funny as much as we talk about, like, the fact that right off the bat, the thing is going awry. One of the robbers decides he doesn't want to participate, and they've got to figure out how to get him out. And, well, don't let him out. Don't let the guy out. They need the key and this key. And then, Pacino with that very funny introduction to him with the gun. And it's just hilarious. And you have to think about it too, is I don't think most people ever saw Al Pacino as a funny actor in this. I mean, he was so deadly serious in both The Godfathers and Serpico and other things that he had been in on stage, et cetera, et cetera. But he's funnier. But at the same time, when you learn more about him and his service and his PSTD and, the fraught relationship he's had with his two wives, if you will, it makes that not only comical, some of that organizational malfeasance that he's got going on, but it's a tragic character who isn't able to do it. He isn't able to get it right. He's gotten so many things wrong, and some of it's hubris, some of it's getting filled up by being able to sort of play to the average person, and whether they're the sympathies of the people in the bank or the people out in the street that he's sort of getting riled up. Even to the cop, Jerning's cop that he's relating to. But you suddenly look at a lot of that comedy in retrospect and think, well, that's funny, but it's also from a character who's not organized, who's got anger management issues, who's, now his frustration in the gun coming out of that box is as much about his rage in not being able to do it properly and everything else going wrong already, as it is funny for us to view as an audience when we don't know the full story.
Yeah.
I think you've got the hubris part right. But I don't know if it's hubris or it's just naivety on him part that
maybe more that. But I mean, it's building on little, thinking that he's got it under control, and he doesn't.
He thinks he knows things, and he knows some things. That's the thing. Like when he talks about the bank thing, and the money
taken out of the drawer,
which bills to take and which not. I mean, when we see that part, it's like, okay, this is a guy who knows some stuff. Even Mulvaney says, you seem to have an intricate knowledge of the way the banks work.
But he doesn't know how to light the ledger. He's struggling, holding it weird, and using this little Bic lighter, and then he's letting it fester in the garbage pail, and then it becomes a telltale sign for the insurance guy. It's like, he may know banking, but he don't know lighting.
and that's ultimately what alerts everybody in the neighborhood to what's going on.
Oh, it's so off the rails in the first 20 minutes. That's why it's so funny that literally, I think at the 16-minute mark, right after the credits, I give a minute there, 15, 16 minutes, suddenly they're surrounded by cops. Like most films would take at least half an hour before that happens. Nope. Lumet's there with Frank Pearson's script in 15 minutes. By the way, I made a mistake. Pearson won original screenplay for this. Adapted screenplay was Cuckoo's Nest. I know it was based, there was a book written about the actual thing, but I guess because he didn't necessarily base it entirely on that it was considered an original screenplay. But anyway, he won the Oscar for best original screenplay for this.
Which is kind of funny because I read somewhere that surprisingly, some of the dialogue, even though they had read through an initial script, was improvised, and what they did was they ended up taking some of the improvisations and write it back into the official
script.
So that would be the official screenplay. Yeah. So they had initial script, but they did a lot of improvisation, which then the director took the dialogue and put it back into the official script that I think that was probably submitted whatever for Oscars or whatnot. And this film really is, it's one of those that it's again another film that it's 50 years old, but Ian, I think you said it, mentioned it, that I mean it's still it stands up today the way it plays out. While some of the stuff as far as cars go and maybe the buildings and some of the fashions and everything, as far as the story and stuff goes, I mean, you watch it today, it plays out. I mean, you get invested in this. There's nothing in here that really dates it as far as the characters and what's going on. You can still relate to these people, and especially too when the media, how it handles some things as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's I'm trying to find the name of it. There was a movie called Money Monster from 9 years ago. George Clooney.
Oh, and Julia Roberts, right?
I don't know if she was. I don't know, but essentially, this guy is disgruntled and he takes over a TV station, and George Clooney plays this Jim Cramer type, financial guy, and it's very much like a financial crisis drama. It's a big kind of glossy Hollywood production that wasn't that good, but it just, to your point, Mark, I think they could remake Dog Day Afternoon. If they did, it would be great if they could get someone with Lumet's sensibility to keep it gritty, to keep it grounded, and not have, again, George Clooney playing, any part in this movie. Like him as an actor, but not for anything in this role. And not Chalamet as Sonny. But you either re-release this movie today, or you can remake it, kind of a shot-for-shot thing. And you're right. We're still talking about these things, unfortunately, half a century later. And the more unfortunate part is I think a lot of the discussion was more mature back in 1975 than perhaps it is today. So I don't know how well it would do, but it'd be worth a shot.
I think if you got a cast too, that a grounded cast of especially character actors and that, you probably could, because I mean that's what helps makes this film work is and elevated is the characters. I mean, even our supporting cast, when you get into the bank teller girl, you get the one who's the manager of the tellers, the kind of, and she's just great, telling them to check their language, and that, you know, and then there's the one girl when he had the whole bathroom debate and he finally gets sick of it. He's like, okay, fine, you first, kicks in the door to the bathroom, and there's another girl that stands there, and her manager's like,
she's I think the leader of the tellers. I think she says outside, they're my girls, I got to go back.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. This is the first year, the upcoming spring, that they're going to have a Academy Award for Best Casting. And you think about some of these kind of movies where, I mean, my goodness, the casting here from every part that's filled, whether it's the pizza delivery guy to any of those bank tellers, is genius. I mean, they seem, to somebody's earlier point, they're so real, and they look normal people, and you know they're not done up, and even the cinematography here, while being very, very terrific and smart, and Didi Allen's editing, you know, it's slow when it needs to be, and it's fast and tense more when it needs to be as well. You know, that look, I just wonder if that kind of stuff could exist today, if you could even get casting that makes hay out of so many people who look like, you almost have to do what Chloe Zhao did in Nomadland, where she cast real people who were homeless, you know, to make it authentic, because just finding those kind of people in today's time of celebrity and fame and actors and is impossible, let alone could you make a film that looks that rough? I mean, without it being like some of the Tony Scott films he did looked rough, or even like Ridley Scott's Black Hawk Down looks very grainy and stuff, but it's pretty slick. You know, this didn't look slick at all. It looked like Lumet might have been going for spontaneous, that let's just go for that first take, even if it's not, and that works perfectly here. But you wonder if those kind of rules that, to your point, Ian, were so like, wow, that made this period so fascinating and everything. Even if they tried to remake it, could they even get close to those two elements? I doubt it.
Yeah, it's hard to say if they could capture that again, just because it'd be too slick.
You also got to realize this was the new generation of Hollywood that basically said, fuck the studio system.
Right.
This was your Pacinos, your Scorseses, your Spielbergs, those people that were coming out and going, no, look, what you've been getting from mainstream Hollywood has been crap. We're going to bring our independent sensibilities into making these big studio movies.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's why the 70s are what they are. Because by the time the 80s rolled around, all those directors were now the established.
They were the established because they were making that money.
Directors by that point. So
they were
this is when they were raw. They were cutting their teeth, and they had the balls to walk into Paramount or any of the studios and go, okay, fine. You don't want to do it my way? Fuck you. I'm going to walk and do it somewhere else. And that would never happen today.
No, not really at all. No,
not at that level. Not at
that level. No, not at that level at all. But and we'll go around. I want to just get everybody's final, not a final thought, but favorite scene in this film that you have, or favorite moment for your character, if you want to think about it for a moment, that you like. I'll go first, and for me, the moment I really, it's like. And they throw it in there on purpose, and it's heartbreaking because of the end. But Sonny, for his bumbling and the way he's going about it, and as you're watching this going, dude, you're just making mistakes. You get to where they pull up the limo bus, and you have the driver come out, and he's having a very casual conversation with the driver, and then he tells Sheldon, he's like, no, I want that guy, the guy who drove the vehicle up, I want him in it. And he pauses, and everybody pauses for a moment. And then he's like, oh, okay. So then he goes in, and then he goes, okay, no, stop. No, now I want that guy. Get that cop out of here. Like, even though he's been bumbling, Sonny was able to sniff out that the guy bringing the vehicle up was actually a cop. And, and I loved that moment because here it is near the end. And as many mistakes and emotional and things that Sonny has, it shows you he wasn't a complete dummy. He wasn't a complete, or he had smarts to him, just not necessarily about bank robbing. But that was that's what I really enjoyed that particular scene, just because it was kind of unexpected for Sonny to suddenly just snap in, and suddenly he's like street smart Sonny. He's like, yeah, no, that's a cop. I want you now to drive us. And I'm like, oh, damn. So, Joe, what about you? You had a favorite scene or moment?
Oddly enough, I think it's when the bank manager is kind of dressing down Sonny towards the middle of the movie and basically telling him, look, don't mistake the way I'm acting towards you is because I want my girls to walk out of here alive today. Don't mistake this into thinking that we're friends or anything. And that does pay off in the end because, like you guys pointed out, as they're escorting them to the police car, they have their backs to him. I think it was Ian. He's like, there isn't any moment where they turn around and go, oh, Sonny, we'll miss you. And I think he's our conduit to this whole situation, because in a way this movie is, we're watching Stockholm Syndrome and we're kind of falling victim to it because we are starting to like Sonny. Yeah. We're starting to think, he's not such a bad guy. And he really isn't at the end of the day. I don't think he's, he has anger issues, but I don't think he would have murdered anybody that day. I really don't think. I don't know if Sal is odd because I don't know if Sal would. I still don't know if Sal would have actually murdered somebody. But Sonny, you get the feeling that he's just a guy who just did this one really stupid thing that got way out of control and basically ruined his life.
Well, Joe, I want to jump in real quick and just point something out that you really solidified for me is the bank manager, Mulvaney. In every other movie by any other writer or director, this guy, since he's the bank manager and all of his employees pretty much are women, he would have been a pervert. He would have been sleeping with one of them. He would have been this outrageous misogynist. You can tell he really cares about them, down to the point at one point he apologizes for having used foul language.
Yeah. Yes.
And he gets up and he leaves, and one of the tellers like, what did he say? I think it was Carol Kane, was that he said the F word or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's kind of an old school guy, and he's just a businessman, and you're right, he would do anything for these people, down to getting into the good graces of the people holding all of them hostage. It's a character with that kind of nuance that we just don't see ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, what about you, Ian, then? Favorite scene or moment in the film, or one that really struck you?
I think it encapsulates everything I love about this movie. There's the scene where Sonny shoots off the shotgun because he believes that the cops are coming in through the back of the building, and it leads to this all this quick cut editing and that montage you mentioned. But there's chaos in the street, and Sonny goes out to the front door to Moretti, and he's like, what's going on back there? What's going on back there? And he keeps like yelling at him, and Moretti's like, what are you talking about? And it's just very clear that Moretti doesn't know that there's this other operation happening in the back of the bank. From the moment this thing pops off, it looks like bystanders on the streets with guns in their pockets wanting to like pull their guns out and take shots at Sonny when he comes out of the door, to the cops. They constantly having to yell at the cops, say, put your guns away. No, you put your guns away. Yes, all of you put your guns away. I'm serious. Nobody quite respects him. And in that exchange with the whole thing of what's going on back there, Moretti gets up into the door, and as things kind of calm down, they're talking to each other man to man, but you can tell, particularly Durning's voice is hoarse.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can tell this wasn't like, okay, we're going to shoot this scene over a few days. Your voice is always going to sound perfect as you're yelling, being all macho. Like, no, you get the feeling that he's exhausted. He's doing his best, and he's losing his voice because he's, keep having to yell and convince this guy that he doesn't know what's going on. And Pacino is also getting a little bit raspy in that moment. It felt extremely, again, authentic.
Mm-hmm. Excellent pick. And Jeff, what about you? Your favorite?
I love that too. In fact, I think it's fascinating because Pacino sort of acts with whites of his eyes. I think some other critic at the time said that because he's always so like shocked and his eyes are saucers.
Mhm.
Can't believe everything that's going on. And I
It's
think
the poster of the movie,
Exactly.
the
That's right.
illustration. Yeah.
Just completely like paranoid. And Durning acts with, I think, the rasp in his voice tells you so much about what that character is going through. But I'll tell you the one thing that struck me this time that, and again, it's a little movie-ish, might be the one part of the film that's leans that way where so much of it doesn't. But it's where they're sitting around in the room and they're eating the food and having the tabs. And Salda is upset that they're talking about she wants a cigarette and take up smoking and all that. And she goes, so you'll take a gun, take out a machine gun, but you won't have a smoke. And he says, I don't want the cancer. And to me, it's almost like a little foreshadowing. It's like, but we delivered the bomb when Quinn says that, and Jaw's like, he's doomed. He's the guy who ain't walking out of here. It's a little foreshadowing, but it's like, man, if you think that's the least of your troubles, you don't understand the whole day that's transpired. But I love that because it's also one of the few times where Sal actually says more than a couple lines.
Yeah.
It's funny for somebody who was so like making excuses for himself and I should have been, I was passed over kind of stuff. And, fumbling the gun in the fruit stand scene in The Godfather. And then here he's, pretty adept with keeping that thing focused on everybody. And he doesn't say much here, but he says a couple lines in that. And I thought that was not only telling about the character and sort of the dynamics that even though we're friendly eating with them, there's still this chasm between us, but also that Sal was sort of not seeing the bigger picture, that he was worried about, I don't want the cancer. It's like, man, you got
that's at least you're worried.
You got death coming to you a lot faster than that.
Well, and also that scene is great because it talks to the dynamic of those bank tellers. They're still giving him shit, even though they know that this is the guy with the machine gun.
That's right. It's almost like he's a fellow employee that they're giving shit on the lunch hour.
Yeah.
Well, all great stuff, guys, and I hope everybody enjoyed this conversation on Dog Day Afternoon. I think with the nods of agreement, we can all recommend this one.
Oh yeah.
There's a reason why it's a classic. There's a reason, and it's not just because of Pacino. It's just the whole package altogether. This film is just really well done, and it takes you on a very interesting journey, as we said, from where it starts off kind of bumbling and you're kind of snickering and chuckling to by the end you get that intense scene in the bus with where Sal gets shot in the head, and it's just handled like so intense that it just builds like that, and it's so well done. And I think that gets lost occasionally. I'm not saying that they don't make films like this, but it's a smartly made film that I think takes some chances too, and gives some credit to the audience, which I think many films nowadays may not. It gives the audience a chance to kind of participate mentally in on it as well. So yeah. So thank you so much, folks. And now, hey, this is our last Over the Hill special, our last yearly series that we do. Again, when I started this 12 years ago, I didn't think I'd be doing a yearly series every year, but I have, and it's been a lot of fun doing these. And so next year you voted on it. We came up with it. Well, I kind of came up with it is Animation Nation, where next year we're going to be looking at least at one animated film a month, if not more, during the course of 2026. So each month you'll get at least one episode of Animation Nation where it'll be specifically an animated film. And as always, I'll build a monthly theme around that. So now as we do, we got a wheel. We've got the wheel of random. So we're going to find out what next month's first Animation Nation theme will be. And yes, there is the little 20-year banner because next year we'll be 20 years on to YouTube because I just don't know when to quit. So with that, let's spin the wheel and see what we're going to get.
Oh, I was gonna say.
At the last second, the last bit. Next month, January, will be Fantastically Dark. And what is that? Well, Fantastically Dark is going to be a batch of films that we will be looking at that are fantasy films, but they're dark fantasy films. The Animation Nation film for that is The Black Cauldron from 1985. So we will be looking at the Black Cauldron from 1985 as our Animation Nation episode. And then around that, since that is Fantastically Dark, we will be talking Dragon Slayer, Legend, and Clash of the Titans in January. So we've got some dark fantasies films coming up that you will definitely want to check out, because those are some films that I've been looking forward to revisiting.
Release the Kraken.
Huh? Yes, Raise the Kraken.
Wait,
The Clash-
we are talking about the original Clash of the Titans,
Lawrence
right?
Olivier
Yeah,
said that line.
I'll
not
give you the
Liam
date.
Neeson.
Oh,
We are
okay.
looking at Dragon Slayer 1981, Legend 1985, and Clash of the Titans 1981. Yes, the original, the Ray Harryhausen.
With Harry Hamlin.
Yeah,
with
with
Lee.
Harry Hamlin, and a wonderful. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that. It's one of my all-time favorites. So we're going to talk that next month, Fantastically Dark. And thank you very much. This has been a fantastic episode. And now this is where I give my wonderful, patient guests who make this show what it is, besides our listeners out there, which thank you for a wonderful year, by the way. Did the wrap for our podcast, and we increased our audience and such by leaps and bounds. It's pretty crazy. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. But yes, License to Shill is now yours. Joe, you got anything?
We just had our Christmas special on the last drive-in, and there is the ongoing the ongoing auction for charities. Go to coldcruelchristmas.com. You can take a look at some of the stuff that's being auctioned off. Every dime of it is going to charity. Fright Rags made some merchandise, and they are selling some stuff at cost, with all the profits going to charity. Or they made it for us at cost for to go to charity. So yeah, coldcruelchristmas.com. So yeah, help out a few charities during the holidays.
Fantastic. And Mr. Jeff York, please, License to Shill, sir.
The establishingshot.org, as it says there, is where you can read my takes on movies and various TV shows here and there. You can follow me online at Jeff York Chicago on Instagram, as well as Jeff York caricatures there. I do some artwork on the side, sometimes accompanying reviews of films or shows I like particularly. My 10 best list will be coming up probably later this coming week, or maybe early the following. And my Chicago film critics group, called the Chicago Indie Critics, we will be releasing our nominations and winners for our collective best of the year in the first week of January.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. And if you're at all curious, folks, specialmarkproductions.com. We've got all kinds of stuff there, links to the TikToks, links to the, everybody here. I've got some written reviews up there. I got some interviews that I did this past year. Got to talk to a lot of really cool people. We'll give it to Ian. No, I was getting to you. I was going to get you.
Usually you do yourself as the wrap up. That's the
I
thing.
know. I usually do myself as a wrap up, but I was trying to mix it up.
Oh, okay.
And now you ruined it. Now I just go ahead, Ian. License you.
I'm sorry. I just, hey, in fairness, Joe pointed first.
That's fine.
I was like, wait, what about Ian?
Ian was coming up. I was gonna, I tried to do something.
I don't know, man. I thought you forgot him. That's why.
I did not forget Ian. I did not forget. I cannot forget Ian.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com, and also right here on YouTube. We do interviews and movie reviews and live roundtable panels. This week on Wednesday night at 8 Central, we'll be talking Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. And I will be revisiting all three films, or in the case of Glass Onion and Wake Up Dead Man, visiting them, because I didn't bother with any of the films after the first Knives Out. So I'm going to reevaluate and see if I was perhaps too harsh on Monsieur Benoit Blanc. But and I'm also here. I can't believe we're at the end of December, or mid-December, end of 2025, for the spoiler room. I love hanging out and talking with you guys about movies every week live. This is a tremendous thrill. And thank you for introducing me to Dog Day Afternoon, Mark. This is I love this movie.
See, I had to make up for introducing you to a few other films that were very slogs for you to get through. So, we got to
Let's just not. We're gonna blank out the month of August. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Rollerball. Rollerball was a great the original Rollerball.
Yes.
Everything else that month was shit.
Pardon my pun. I got to throw a bone once in a while. But anyway, so there we have it, folks. Thank you so much for a wonderful year. We've got a next week, a very interesting one that I'll be very happy to hear folks' opinions on, because I have my thoughts on it. Cadillac Man. Starring Robin Williams and Tim Robbins. A very interesting film for sure, that I think kind of falls in between the last two films we talked about. So we'll definitely have some fun stuff there. So hope you tune in then. Thank you so much. Stay safe, folks. And until next time, we'll just say good night, everyone.
Good night.